Hey sneak peekers, it's Simi here. I'm out here on the red carpet for South by Southwest, and I'm going to be interviewing the creators of the film Omoiyari. I can't wait to see what they say. So Omoiyari, I did some research on it, and it means to have compassion and sympathy towards others. Can you give us a little bit more context as to why you would name your film after this?
I was looking at a lot of oppression and marginalization and the kind of the fear and otherization that happens to that people have, and that's what happens. That's what causes discrimination and prejudice. And so I thought it kind of boiled down to like, how do you make this better? How does society grow? And it's really about having empathy for other, like strangers and people who are outside of your social circle. And so how do you feel about minorities? And I think having this kind of empathy and acting on empathy is really what will help you not to be, aggressive or otherize people.
So my next question is, why do you think it's important that we highlight cultures and different diversities in film?
I think it's always been important because it broadens our perception of the world. To go to another country, to learn another language, to eat a different food, to commune with somebody who's outside of your social circle is something that will only enrich your own life. And so I think right now the climate here in this country is very good, and that people are actually more receptive to hearing minority voices and marginalized people's opinions and perspectives, and I think it can only strengthen us as human beings.
I have one more question for you. So, you released an EP in 2019. It has the same name. So, what inspired you to cross the threshold from music into film?
Yeah, so Omoiyari, which was actually the album I released in 2019, this was a singular vision to have the music and the film as a complete piece, and so. Documentary an album doesn't take 5 years to make. So I released the album after a couple of years, but all the musical material I created was used to underscore. I composed the score. It has it's all integrated into live performances in the film, and the thematic melodies are all part of this. Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you. Pleasure to meet you. It's going great. I like your shirt. What was sort of like the process of collaborating with Kishi Bashi?
We actually started by meeting on a snowboard film. So for a decade, I was like a snowboard film editor doing different snowboard projects and stuff like that, action sports, skateboarding, surfing, snowboarding, and found his music, loved it, hired him as a composer. Our production company hired him as a composer a couple years ago, about 6 years ago, 7 years ago now, and we just bonded over that process, of him scoring to beautiful footage and working through story moments. At the time, I was feeling ready to kind of move on from action sports, not just to do something. I felt called to do a project that was a bit more grandiose, and he brought this to me. The idea of telling a story about one of the obviously World War II was an insane time in American history and world history, but Japanese American incarceration was something that really interested me. History always has, and so went full gear into music creation. He started composing the film and basically writing improvisational score on location, and it was just he's one of my best friends. He's become one of my best friends over the years. We felt that connection. It felt like making movies with the friends that I used to make skateboard films with, but on a whole nother level, right? Now we're talking about American history. Now we're talking about minority identity and traumas that people that are unlike me, a cis white male director, in a male-dominated space. So it's interesting it's been an interesting transformation for me to recognize my own privilege in this space and form a partnership with somebody to really become more of an ally and tell stories that I think everybody should know, because what people are taught in our history books isn't always the way that they're portrayed or the way that they're all the way that they actually happen. That's just one side of the story, and so we spent nearly 5 years making the film to get the story right, to meet folks that were there, get firsthand experiences of the folks that are still alive, that were in those camps to tell that story. So, yeah, love working with Kay. Yeah, he's a wonderful composer and a guy that big procrastinator, as am I, but gets stuff done. Like, you know, like he's
I'm really glad that you had a good experience. Do you plan to make more films like this in the future?
You know, I think this one for me, because at the beginning of this, I didn't know how to do, you know, I looked up to folks like Errol Morris or, you know, Ken Burns or other folks in documentary space, and I think for me it was like a challenge breaking out of what I knew to come into documentary and feel comfortable walking into other people's lives that you don't even know and asking them to tell their story. And I feel very comfortable doing that now, and I hope to make more films like this, 100%, where I feel like combining music, great music, with really powerful stories that I think need to be told, that some of them have been hidden. I think that's a great vessel, a great way to wrap up history into something that's digestible for the public, for people to watch, you know, because yeah, sometimes like your plain old history doc was like people were falling asleep when I was growing up, you know, like, oh, I don't want to learn about this. And so I feel like this is we're coming to an age where we can infuse better music and all of that into making really great films. Yeah.
What inspired you to like take on this project?
Well, so the initial way I was approached by this project was through Justin. I'd worked with him on a previous film. And really, like, the music side of it, to me, was the most interesting because I didn't really know about the history. As I've worked on the project and got to know the history of what's been happening and learning more about, like, all of the social constructs that are around all of this and the history of imprisonment of immigrants in this country, like, now, like, the music is beautiful and it's wonderful and it's powerful and it's, like, perfect. But really what I'm hoping people take away from this is, like, really the social story behind the film, and I think that is strong in the film, is as strong as the music is.
So following up on what you said about social change, why do you think it's important that we highlight different diversity and different cultures in film?
I mean, that's how people, like, feel a part of a community. It's one of the many ways. Like, art is one of those great connectors of societies, and it helps people, like, feel like they are a part of whatever society they are living in. And if you don't see yourself reflected in that, then, like, you feel like an outsider. If the only thing that you see of yourself is reflected in a negative light, then that might be how you see yourself. And we want everybody to feel like they belong here. And we want everyone to feel like they are a part of this society and that they have a bright future ahead of them and that they belong. And they, you know, we want everyone that is here to feel like this is something that they are a part of, and not that they are an outcast or that they are potentially going to be imprisoned because of the color of their skin. And, like, that it's, you know, there's a lot that this country needs to work on. And this is a very small part of, like, just trying to highlight that, but, like, every little bit that we can get out there and, like, teach people about the history of this country and what we've been doing, it's hopefully a way to show people that there's a better way to do it moving forward.
I was reading the synopsis of Omoiyari, and basically the whole premise of this film was, like, it was based off of a quote that somebody made when they were, like, tying the experience of the immigrants held under Trump's administration to the Japanese being held in these internment camps. When you heard that quote, like, what did it strike with you? Like, how did you feel?
There's another great quote, I think it's Mark Twain, who said, "History doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes." And that's something that we've talked about a lot while making this film. At one point, it was even like a card in the film. It is no longer, but it feels like that, right? Like, history is repeating itself over and over and over again. Look, it's happening right now with the immigration camps on the border. Like, there are hundreds of thousands of people imprisoned in camps because they were trying to seek a better life in America, and, like, that's it. They didn't do anything wrong, you know, like, they're just crossed an imaginary made-up colonial line, right? Like, that's it. And so there's a lot of problems with all of that, and we've been working a lot with people like Suru for Solidarity, who are very anti-police, prison industrial complex, and you know, a lot of that, like, the more you talk to people like that, it's like, oh shit, you guys make a lot of sense. You know, like, this makes sense, what you guys are saying, you know? And yeah, it's when you hear those quotes from Fox News and from other places, that it's infuriating. It's like, why have we learned nothing?
Thank you for your beautiful, insightful responses. I really appreciated hearing them. It was great talking to you.
Likewise. Thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank
you guys
you.
coming. Hope you stay for the movie too.
Yeah.